Hey everyone, so today I thought I'd switch it up a little bit and we would do a top 10 list, and I thought what better show to start this off with than one of my all-time favorites, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, it originally aired on the WB and then UPN in the late 90s, early 2000s, so it's a little older, but I think it's still a very relevant show. I think it's pretty much just tailor-made for everybody, and there's something in it for every fan. I think there's action, there's drama, there's romance, there's just wonderful storytelling, wonderful acting, science fiction, history, just everything. I think everybody can find something in it that they like. And while, yes, it is an older show, I think that people are probably discovering it every day. It's still running on television. I'm sure it's in reruns somewhere on streaming platforms. It's definitely on Hulu, as that's what I rewatch it on. It's even on Facebook's video service, which I haven't really looked into that, but I know it's on there. I've seen ads. And it's still on DVD everywhere. I still have all the DVDs, even though I stream it on Hulu. But it's still out there, and people are coming to it every day and finding it's finding new fans all the time. They just released a new comic book series of it, which I've never really read the comics, but it's got a big following for it. In this new comic series, they've updated it, as it's set in current times as opposed to the late 90s. So, like I said, there's just something every day. There's even talk about a reboot coming out or a continuation of it, which, that could kind of go either way, but we'll see. So anyways, I thought I would start this one off with my personal favorites. These are by no means the actual top 10 of the shows. These are just the top 10 episodes that I like, that I found impactful, that I think if you've never really watched the show, these are the big ones to hit. And like I said, they're not really in any chronological order, as they bounce around between seasons because it's just my personal preference. If you've never watched the show, there are spoilers, so I would consider stopping now. But if you've watched it and you just want to rewatch it, relive the memories, then here we'll go with number 10. Now, coming in at number 10, I've chosen the first season finale, which is called Prophecy Girl. Now, the first season definitely has its ups and downs. I really don't think the series starts to get really good until season 2. But season 1's a pretty solid background. You'll definitely want to watch it. It is pretty much a standard Monster of the Week situation, as in every episode. It doesn't really flow over into the next one. It's more about the current monster they have, or demon, whatever they're fighting in that episode. But there is an overarching theme of the Master, who is Buffy's big bad of the first season, and Prophecy Girl is where everything comes to a head. Now, this is the episode where I really found that this is the one that you learn just what a super talented actress Sarah Michelle Gellar is. She never fails to make me feel something in her performances. There's just something about her. She's got that thing that just makes you feel. And now in this episode, she goes head to head with the Master because there is a prophecy that is discovered early on in the episode.
Tomorrow night, Buffy will face the Master, and she will die.
And so now she thinks that the only way to defeat the Master is that she's going to die. And for a 16-year-old to have to think that their life is going to be ending soon, it's overwhelming.
Giles, I'm 16 years old. I don't want to die.
And I think in this episode, Sarah Michelle Gellar she amazes me. She starts, her whole speech towards the end of it, where she's talking to Giles, and where she asks him if it's going to hurt. I mean, that just sticks with you. Now, there's also in this episode, this is where the Scooby Gang finally starts to come together. It's, Cordelia starts to become a part of the team. This is kind of where it starts. So there's all of that. You also have everything coming to a head with Xander's crush on Buffy. She turns him down. Obviously she's into Angel. And you have scenes like that between them Willow finally stands up for herself to Xander. She turns him down from going to the dance. She's not going to be the second, his second choice. And like I said, this ends with Buffy coming back from the dead. She's resuscitated after she does die, which really starts the domino effect of the Slayer. This leads us to Kendra and Faith and just the whole Slayer line down the line. So this does open up the series. It starts the mythology, so to speak. And you end up with, a funny little scene at the end of it where they decide to go ahead and go to the dance even after all this stuff has happened. And that's where you end the season. And like I said, this is why it's number 10. I think it's a really good episode. It really sets up the rest of the series. And it lays the groundwork for a lot of stuff. So number 9 is going to be season 2, the episode called Passion, which is actually, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be on everybody's top 10 list. I mean, a lot of people like it, but there's also a lot of episodes in season 2 that people prefer. Now, this one, it stands out to me just because it is the first episode that truly made me realize that on this show, nobody is safe. Up until now, yes, there's been character deaths, but it's not necessarily been people you were that invested in or people that were really main characters. And at the time this aired, there really wasn't a whole lot of spoilers out there. So when Miss Calendar was killed, I was just shocked. I mean, I remember originally watching it and just being stunned that they killed her off. Now, this episode is also, it really drives the rest of the season. You've got Angel, who has lost his soul after he had sex with Buffy and achieved pure happiness, which was part of the Gypsy curse. And, Buffy's been trying to work up the nerve to take him down, but she hasn't been able to. And now in this episode, he's stalking her out, he's torturing her. He even breaks into Willow's house. He kills her fish. This is also the episode where he tells Joyce that he and Buffy slept together. So there's also that scene between Joyce and Buffy where they have to have that awkward conversation. By the end of the episode, I think this really gives Buffy the drive to take him on. And, of course, when he kills Miss Calendar, he leaves her at Giles's house, and it's just the worst scene ever. And then you have this great scene where Giles tries to go after him. Buffy intervenes, and, you have this breakdown between them where she tells him she can't lose him too. And that really solidified their relationship in the series, I thought. Like I said, it's a good episode. Really great performances all around. David Boreanaz was absolutely amazing as Angelus, and you can see just how evil he could be and how convincing he was at that. So that's why this one is number 9 for me. Now, coming in at number 8 is season 5's episode The Body. Now, a lot of people would rate this higher, and if I was going by pure emotional episodes, I would put this probably right up there at number 1, because this is not your typical episode. This is not an episode that is action-packed. In fact, there's actually no background music throughout the whole episode. It's very quiet. It's very real. It's an episode that to me didn't mean as much when I originally saw it, but now that I'm older and that I've actually experienced loss like in this episode, I really appreciate just how genuine it is. The whole episode centers around the fact that Buffy has walked in and found her mother dead. She had a brain aneurysm, and it shows all of the different portrayals of grief with the different characters, and you go through so many stages when this happens to you, and they personified this in each individual character. This episode, the acting on this is just so raw, and it's so impactful and emotional, and it's a brilliant episode. Now, this episode also featured the first kiss between Willow and Tara, and you don't even really want to mention it because it's such a non-factor in the episode. Now, the WB at the time was really hesitant to show any kind of physical emotion between them. We didn't have that a whole lot on TV at that point. But this episode, they do kiss, and like I said, even when I watched it, I don't remember it being an issue. I don't even remember noticing it that much until maybe later that, oh yeah, that actually happened. Because this episode is just so good, and you don't even think about that. And if you've ever lost anybody that's that close to you, you completely sympathize with the characters. You understand what they're going through. And it's just written and acted and directed, and everything is absolutely beautiful.
I wish Buffy Summers had never come to Sunnydale.
Done. Season 3's The Wish comes in at number 7. Now, this episode is just a whole lot of fun. It's set in an alternate universe after Cordelia makes a wish to a vengeance demon, which is Anya, who makes her first appearance in this episode. Later on, she becomes a full-fledged cast member, and we absolutely love her. But in this episode, she's kind of the villain. She gets Cordelia to wish that Buffy had never come to Sunnydale, which is what Cordelia thinks is the reason her life has just gone so bad lately. So after that, we go to an alternate universe where Buffy never came to Sunnydale. She's actually been in Cleveland, where another Hellmouth is at. And Sunnydale has been taken over. The vampires take over after dark. The citizens, why they still live there is beyond me. But they stay there during the day. Everyone locks up everything at night. There's hardly anybody there. The world is just completely different, and Cordelia is trying to adjust to this, but she runs into Xander and Willow, who she thought was dead, but it just turns out that they are now vampires. And of course, this is where you get the doppelganger version of Willow that makes a reappearance later on. And Allison Hannigan just has so much fun with this character that, I just had to add this one because it's just such a fun episode to watch. Now, eventually, Cordelia does not make it. She gets killed by Xander and Willow while Giles watches, but not before she says something about Anya and making the wish, to where Giles is suspicious. He starts to look up stuff about Anyanka, and he starts to figure out what's going on. He makes contact with Buffy. She comes from Cleveland to try to help things there. And this is a different version of Buffy that you've ever seen. She is a warrior. She's, not the preppy little cheerleader that we've known before. She's seasoned, and she's not there to make friends. She's not there to have a good time. She's just there to take care of the master, because, she eventually hears about him, and she goes to take him on. She actually finds Angel, who's been tied up and chained to the basement and tortured by Willow and everybody else for a while now, and she escapes with him. They go to this factory that's been created to where humans are basically being used like cattle, and a fight ensues. It gets really rough. Buffy takes out Xander. Angel gets taken out by an arrow, which of course Buffy doesn't care because she doesn't really know him. Willow gets killed by Oz, and then at the very end of it, right as Giles has summoned Anyanka and is going to destroy her locket, which is going to revert everything back to what it is, the Master kills Buffy. And as this happens, the world goes back to how it is. That's when Anya kind of finds out she doesn't have her powers anymore. They've been stripped from her, and she'll come back into the story later on. But like I said, it's just a fun little episode. It's fun to watch, and it's an interesting concept. Of course, later on we find out more about vengeance demons and everything like that. So this episode does have repercussions that last well on into the rest of the episodes. Graduation Day Parts 1 and 2, the season finale of Season 3, and a lot of people that I've seen online have considered this the best episode. Season 3 and Season 2 are really beloved by the fans. The high school years tend to be a favorite of most people, which I like those, but I also like, some of the college years experience too. Now, this was actually, when this came out, the Columbine shooting had happened, so they only played the first part, Graduation Day Part 1, the 21st episode. That's the only part we got. And then because of the shooting, the WB backed off. There was 2 episodes that they had not aired, one being Earshot and the other being Graduation Day Part 2, and they held off on showing those for the whole summer, actually, because I don't really remember seeing Graduation Day Part 2 until maybe a week before the Season 4 premiere. It was a really weird time, and, the WB didn't want to upset anybody, so... And plus, this episode takes place, with, all kinds of violence going on at the school, so I can see why they did it. But it was a different, viewing experience back then. Now people see the 2 episodes back to back, and it makes more sense. But back then, you only saw the first episode. Now, this one is really, there's a lot of stuff going on in this one. You've got Angel preparing to leave Buffy. He's already told her he's leaving. Of course, he's going to his spin-off show, Angel. But this was really kind of the end, and this is definitely the end of the high school generation. The show definitely takes a turn after this. There's just so much going on in this one. The storyline with Faith kind of comes to a close. There's a really epic fight scene between Faith and Buffy that, they've had several little fights together, but this one is really the be-all, end-all, I think. There's also the scene where Angel is forced to drink from Buffy and the repercussions from that. Willow and Oz take their relationship to the next level. And then when it comes down to graduation day and they are taking on the mayor, the whole school unites. Everyone fights against everyone. And, Cordelia stakes her first vampire. Harmony gets bitten. Of course, later on we see Harmony come back to the show. She's kind of the gift that just keeps on giving at some point. And like I said, it's just a really good episode. The ending of it is kind of bittersweet because it is the last time we'll see Cordelia on the show as she goes to Angel's series, and she doesn't return. Angel makes a couple of guest appearances, but that's the last we see of Cordelia. She's off to LA. So like I said, it's kind of bittersweet. This is the last time we see the full cast together. But everything changes after this one. So that's why I rank this one at number 6. It's kind of a cheat because there's 2 episodes, but it really is one story. Coming in at number 5 is Becoming, Part 1 and 2, which is the season finale of Season 2. This season, Season 2, was really building towards this the entire back half of the season. You had Angel as Angelus, wreaking havoc. You've had Spike and Drusilla in the background, and you've had Buffy coming to terms with what has happened to Angel, and she's thinking she's never going to see him again. She's never going to get the old him back. So in this one, everything just comes to a head. It's a really, really good finale. I remember watching this one with a bunch of friends, actually, because we used to get together and watch season finales and season premieres and have little parties. And we were really nerdy, but we thought it was fun. But I remember watching this one. There's just a lot of emotion in this. Buffy, towards the end of it, is actually forced to kill Angel, and she sends him to hell.
Close your eyes.
There's a whole deal with Willow doing a spell to resoul Angel, and of course she doesn't know it works. No one knows it works except for Buffy. And after this really epic fight between Angel and Buffy, which has some of the best choreography that the show has ever did with them. That's when Angel gets his soul back, and Buffy is forced to kill him because it's too late. She has to do this now. If not, the Earth is going to be swallowed up by this dimension, and it's just one of the saddest scenes ever. And David Boreanaz and Sarah Michelle Gellar just kill it in this. There's also the very end of it, which plays that Sarah McLachlan song, and no one really knows what's happened to Buffy. They assume she's okay, but she decides to leave. She just, everything that's happened with Angel, having to kill him, it's just too much. She's also had a huge fight with Joyce, because in this one, Joyce finds out that she is the Slayer. They argue, and Joyce tells her never to return if she leaves, which, you know, she doesn't mean it, but it happens. And then everything else happens with Angel, so it's just too much, and Buffy leaves, and that was how it ended. And that was a very long summer, because we just really didn't know what was going to happen after that. Coming in at number 4 is season 6. This is episode Tabula Rasa, which is actually the episode after the musical. So they definitely had a lot to accomplish. And this one is just a fun episode. It really brings back what was good about the older episodes. And I really appreciated that, because the show at that point had changed just so drastically. Season 6 especially is really, it's a hot mess. So this one really got it back to basics. There's a spell gone wrong, and everyone, you know, the main cast, they're all fighting, and there's all this drama going on with them, and they're basically, you know, it's a clean slate. They don't know who they are, they don't know their history. They just all kind of wake up together in the magic box, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Now, it's just hilarious, a lot of it is, because Willow thinks that because she and Xander wake up next to each other, Willow and Xander think that they're a couple. Of course, you know, Willow, I guess, evidently doesn't think she's gay at that point. Now, later on, she kisses Tara, and she kind of realizes she is. Buffy and Spike, who are kind of they're playing out this romance through this season, you know, but Spike thinks that Giles is his father. Giles and Anya think that they're a couple, and I always liked the idea of them together, so this episode was really just kind of a fan service, I guess. Dawn doesn't even know what her name is at one point, and all of them are just, they don't even know what a vampire is. So there's this one just hilarious scene where they open the door and there's vampires, and they all just like scream and slam the door. It was just hilarious.
Oh my god, did you guys see that?
The whole episode is really kind of a, you know, just a farce of the show, but it's hilarious, and I love to rewatch it, and it's just an all-around good episode. Number 3 is going to be Season 4's episode Hush, which was just such a creative episode. Season 4 had a lot of ups and downs in it, but this episode is one that I think every fan of the show really likes. It all has to do with these demons called the Gentlemen, which are quite possibly the creepiest demon that the show ever did. I mean, these people gave me nightmares. When the episode actually aired, there was me and my stepsister were watching it, and it was kind of late at night. I think we'd recorded it, and we were watching it, and I want to say it was like almost midnight. And the scene where the Gentlemen are floating through the town, and one of them glides past the window as the lady that's staying with Giles sees, literally made me scream. It actually woke up our parents, and they were like, what's going on? And it was, like I said, it always creeps me out. These are just the creepiest people. But the whole town is not able to speak. Of course, everyone is saying it's laryngitis, you know, whatever it is. But it's obviously something mystical. And the whole episode is just deathly silent. The background music plays a big part in this. The actors really had to take this one to another level because they don't talk in the episode. So there's just a lot of funny moments in there. So there's a lot of creepy moments. And the ending of the episode is a really big payoff for some storylines that had been building between Buffy and Riley at that point. So that's definitely why this one is so high up on the list. It's very rewatchable, just for all of the fun moments, and of course, like I said, for the creepiness factor, it's right up there. Season 6 episode Once More with Feeling, it makes my number 2 spot. But if I had to pick an episode that I have watched the most, this would definitely be number 1. I can't tell you the amount of times I've watched it. I just love this episode. And I'm not really someone that really likes musicals on TV, because I think a lot of time they're just really strange. You know, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And this one it surprised the heck out of me, because I was fully prepared to just hate it. But it was just really creative, and it wasn't, I mean, it was cheesy, but it was supposed to be that way. You know, the whole episode deals with a demon who's come to Sunnydale, and of course people are just bursting into song. Now, the entire episode soundtrack is just amazing. I've listened to it, I don't know how many times. I own the album. I was listening to it on Spotify the other day, actually. And like I said, I watch this one from time to time. It just makes me happy. The whole cast, you know, sings in this. You know, even the ones who aren't that great. You know, Allison Hannigan, she's an amazing actress, but as far as a vocalist, she's not that great. But they kind of work around that. The songs are catchy, the dancing, everything. It's just such a fun episode. And I find that people either love it or hate the episode. There's really no in between. You know, I loved it. One of my best friends absolutely hates it, just thought it was the stupidest show ever, and she loves Buffy, but she just can't get into it. And I've never been able to sway her either way. But I love it. I think it's a fun episode. I think all the fans probably enjoyed it to some degree. You know, the songs are just so catchy, they get stuck in your head. I probably know all the lyrics at this point, just because I've listened to it so many times.